Today on Heavy Metal Frequency, I'm reviewing Opeth's 2005 album, Ghost Reveries. This was their debut on Roadrunner Records, and Damnation notwithstanding, this was kind of their commercial breakthrough. Well, this and Damnation 2003 and 2005, respectively. I kind of look at this as like a reincarnation of Blackwater Park, because after Blackwater Park, they basically bifurcated their sound, and they did a very Stockholm Death album called Deliverance, and then they did a prog rock, psychedelic rock album with touches of things like pop and shoegaze called Damnation. And so that coalesces back together into what, for a number of years, I considered this to be like Blackwater Park Part 2, but it's too easy just to say this is Blackwater Park Part 2, because there's a greater sense of, with the addition of Peter Weiberg, there's a greater sense of keyboard usage on this. And yes, they've done piano and keyboards before on albums like Deliverance, Damnation, and pretty much everything they've done, Orchid, Morning Rise, etc. But it's more, it's just, it feels a little bit different on this. It's like a 70s thoroughly, deeply entrenched 70s prog thing, psychedelic rock, and then there's the progressive rock aspect as well, and then the death metal and some of the black metal aspects. And so it's typical for the time Opeth, but it's a little more obfuscated than that, because looking at Blackwater Park was very psychedelic rock. This is very psychedelic rock, but the intricacies a little bit different here. There are some, the guitar solos are a little bit different in places, like the solos on the Grand Conjuration have a different kind of feel to them than anything else Opeth has ever done. And so, yes, this is a death metal, psychedelic rock, progressive rock, black metal album, but it's like an alternate reality version of that. It's a very interesting listening. It has a very interesting feel to it to listen to it, and a lot of bands, especially Opeth, have a large difference between every single album, but it's very strange, and I suggest you build up to listening to this by listening to Blackwater Park, Deliverance, Damnation, and then Ghost Reveries. And if you do that, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's very hard to explain. It's like I feel like this is like a recreation of Blackwater Park, and that's just me. And so also a lot of their lyrics are kind of like Brothers Grimm, old school, what we'd now call dark folk, dark fantasy, but at the time it was written as folklore or whatever. And so it has that kind of element too. And so there's just a lot here that's really, really trippy from my perspective as someone who kind of grew up listening to a couple of these bands like Opeth, and I'm going back as an adult, and it seems like a different take on Blackwater Park. And yes, there's no Bebo on here. There's no Wall of Sound, Drapery Falls-esque song. You do have excellent songs. Ghost of Perdition is fantastic. The opening glissando is very nice. It's a very well done song. The Baying of the Hounds and Beneath the Mire kind of blur together a little bit, and that's a very interesting technique. Atonement is a really cool kind of bluesy song. Reverie, the one thing I wish Reverie was an actual track, and I wish that instead of it being a pre-gap for Harlequin Forest, and Harlequin Forest is a really cool, like, jammy rock song that goes into death metal, and the intricacy, the interlocking of the guitar and drums on this are fantastic. Hours of Wealth is really cool. The Grand Conjuration, there were actually two versions of it. The original version had a different drum line that's a lot more like a linear beat drum line that's different from anything Opeth's ever done. Again, and Isolation Years is a really, really cool, like, outro. And this is, unfortunately, this one does not have, I bought this 3 times, and at one point I had the special edition with the cover of Deep Purple, Soldier of Fortune, and this does not have that. And it's a really great psychedelic rock song that fits perfectly with the subject matter. I love this. I highly suggest you pick up a copy of this, and I think it's really surreal. This is like, it's like alternate Blackwater Park to me, and that's nothing wrong with that. It's a fantastic album. I love it. It's really strange that this and Damnation are kind of their commercial breakthroughs, but you should definitely pick up a copy of this and pick up both and kind of compare and contrast them, because it's like that's just what I bring to this, is because Blackwater Park was one of my first Opeth albums, and so that's how this resonates with me. And Ghost Reveries is an amazing album, and I suggest you pick up a copy. Thank you.